Howdy YouTube, and welcome to this episode of the Gunman. So today we're going to be doing the prep and masking stages on this Aston Martin DBS. So I believe this is the Aston Martin that was in 007 James Bond Casino Royale. Definitely a pretty cool car, and it's an honor to be able to work on it. So the job we've got here is just two fenders and a front bumper. So it must have just slightly hit something because it's only very light damage. There's mainly just some stone chips and a couple of cracks through the front here on both fenders. And then also on the bumper, that must have slightly hit something, and we've got some stress fractures all through that bumper. So the bumper actually did take more work than the fenders or the guards here. Most of the fenders was just stone chips, so it's a nice enough car that you're not going to paint over any damage. Even if your color has to go a little bit further up the panel, you still want to fix them. But yeah, so as you see here, the front bumper does have a few stress fractures there. So what I had to do was just get some 180 grit on the orbital sander, sand all of that back until you could no longer see it. And then as you see here, we're straight into the booth and getting a couple of coats of 2-pack primer onto it. I chose the dark primer. Obviously, as you can see, whoever did it previously, they actually chose a light colored primer. So at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. Like I've used light colors, and I've used the wrong color primers in many instances over the years. It's not the biggest deal because sometimes that's just what color your primer is, and then it may mean that you have to put an extra coat of color on. As I say, it's not the end of the world. But the system that I'm using now is Stando Blue, and they have a tinted or shaded primer system. So you've got white, you've got black, you've got a middle grey, and pretty much everything in between you can mix. Now, to be fair, the black is not full black, it's just a very dark grey. But it's definitely close enough to provide a good coloured ground coat for your colour. As I say, you can go over the opposite colour, like you can spray black over white and white over black, even with this system, but you do have to be careful because you can get caught out if you're not careful. So yeah, do your best to get that primer as close as possible. Again, that's something that I never used to do. Like 10 plus years ago, there was just one colored primer that you would use, and that's just how it was in most of the panel shops anyway. So yeah, especially using the Stando Blue system that I'm using, it is a little bit more important just because of the way that we do spray the Stando Blue. And I'll be going through the method of applying the base coat and the clear coat on this job in the next video. But all of that aside, I started off by giving it a very quick block. The footage of me doing the block work on this must have gone and disappeared somewhere, but it was definitely not worth scrapping the whole video over a little bit of blocking. So I did give it a light block. I didn't go heavily blocking into it with any coarse sandpaper. As you saw at the very start of the video, there was not any extensive damage on it. There was no large filler repairs or anything like that. So I really did just give it a light block over just to make sure that, as much as anything, I blocked out the orange peel of the primer. Because if you just go and orbital sand that primer, sometimes you may actually be left with a little bit of orange peel. And for those of you with a keen eye or that know Aston Martins, these cars here are actually sanded back flat from factory and then buffed up like a sheet of glass. So I was actually saying it to one of the guys that I work with that, I mean, yes, this is one hell of an expensive car, no doubt. I don't even know how much it would be worth, but I would imagine, you know, $250,000 up. But that aside, like, you actually get a little bit more, you know what I mean? Like, obviously, you know, not the kind of car that most people are going to buy and say, hey, that's great value for money. No, but at least, like, yes, it's a supercar, but they do go that little bit further, you know, like some certain brands of supercars will leave heavy orange peel even in those extremely expensive cars. So I guess as much as anything, as a painter, it's something that I do appreciate. I can look at that and say, well, they have gone above and beyond what most car manufacturers do. So Yeah, I mean, it's one of those little things, but it actually makes a big difference to me, to the look. I mean, if you're buying an Aston Martin, you care about how it looks, you know? So, I mean, and most owners, they wouldn't even know what orange peel is, but they know what they see, and they know what looks good, if you know what I mean. So, if you do own a supercar that you've spent loads and loads of money on, I would really be interested to hear about your comments in the comment section. And have you had it sanded back flat? Did you buy one of those ones that does have heavy orange peel in it, and were you happy to pay an extra $5,000 or so to a highly skilled person who knows what they're doing to sand it all back flat? I'm just interested as much as anything, and I will be actually doing that process as its own separate video. So as it sits at the moment, this car actually hasn't been sanded back dead flat yet, so I'll have to get that footage when I go back to work on Monday. But for now, this is where we're up to. So I've got all the prep work done. As you can see there was a couple of little cut throughs down to that white primer that they used. I'm not too worried about that. As I say, look, ideally I would have a correctly shaded primer, but I'm also confident that I'm able to get good coverage over that. If I wasn't, I do actually have some black aerosol can, or I could have also put some more 2-pack primer, just one thin coat of 2-pack primer over that to cover it up, and then also help with that shading. But as I say, I'm pretty confident that I'll be able to get coverage over that white primer as well. So with this job here, I took a long time to mask it. I'm not hurried in this workshop. When you're working on cars that are worth this kind of money, you should take your time, and you shouldn't treat it like a Mazda, you know what I mean? Like, I've had people over the years tell me, oh, you should treat every car the same. And I'm sorry, man, but look, not every car is the same. This is not a Toyota Echo that the owner doesn't even care about, you know what I mean? That the owner takes down to the shopping centers and has doors opened up on them, that the owner obviously doesn't wash nor wax or care about the dents in it. So why should I take the extra bit of time to make sure all the masking is absolutely 100%, to make sure all those chips and scratches are taken care of to the best of my capabilities, so that all of that clear coat is sanded and buffed back to an extremely high level of quality, you know? So at the end of the day, that's what, like, my reply to that guy who says you've got to treat every car the same is, no, you don't, because they're not all the same. They are so different. And at the end of the day, like, there is no doubt that we get paid more for this job here as well. So for those of you who don't know, I've actually just started at this workshop here, and we do quite a lot of supercars here. Now, at the previous shop I was in, it was a bit more of a mix. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually sprayed one of these, the same car, a couple of months ago at my old job. So we did do these kind of nice cars, but we also did do your average everyday, you know, run-of-the-mill cars. So it's one of those things, you've just got to adapt to the kind of car that you're working on, I guess. It was actually funny with that Aston Martin that I did a couple of months ago. My boss came down to inspect the job, and he's looking for D-nibs on it. He obviously didn't realize that the cars had been sanded back flat. So he's running his hands over it, and he's having a look, and he couldn't find any D-nibs, and he's wondering why. And that's what I said to the detailer. I said, man, I sanded the whole thing back flat. You're not going to find any D-nibs in it, you know. So that's something that the boss didn't even know at my previous workshop. But that aside, one thing that I would like to make a quick mention to is that you may have seen me putting some fine filler into the stone chips earlier. So what I did is I did all my prep work. I blew the entire job down. I then prep soled it down to remove any of the dust. I then put some fine filler into those chips. But what I actually did is, you may have noticed that I actually put some black base coat into the fine filler to actually help with the coverage of the color and stop any possible shrink back that you may get. And it's worked really good. That's one big advantage of using the solvent system. So we actually don't use it most of the time, to be honest, but we do have a solvent-based base coat system there. So I put some solvent-based base coat, just a little bit, into that fine filler, and it really does help with a little bit of shrink back. So where possible, it's always good to do that. Obviously not everyone can do it, because not everyone has some solvent base coat of the correct color to add to their polyester fine filler. But all of that aside, we're going to be doing another follow-up video to this for the spray painting stage, and then there will be another one, as I said before, for the polishing and detailing stage. The polishing and detailing is something that I've been really enjoying lately, and I've really upped my game. Put it this way, I am able to do jobs that are of the highest quality standards on the highest quality cars like this, and if you hang around or you subscribe, well then you will be able to see me doing the polishing stage on this very car. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and until next time, get out there and paint some shit. Gunman out.